years.
You released a memo today that says global innovation is the key to limiting the damage. What innovation are you talking about? What's the number one priority? What do we have to innovate first?
Well, in the near term, it's the scaling up of testing and prioritizing who gets testing and getting the quick results. In the midterm, it's these treatments that can cut the death rate down potentially dramatically. And then the final solution, which is a year to 2 years off, is the vaccine. So we've got to go full speed ahead on all three fronts.
Just to head off the conspiracy theorists, maybe we shouldn't call the vaccine the final solution. Maybe just the
Good
best
point.
solution. Okay.
On 29th October 2013, GlaxoSmithKline, GSK, announced a, quote, new partnership between GSK and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to accelerate research into vaccines for global health needs, end quote. And on January 23rd, 2019, CNBC News published an interview with Bill Gates in which Mr. Gates disclosed that out of the $10 billion he has invested into vaccines, that he has made a 20-to-1 return on his investment. To be clear, Bill is informing us that up to that point, Bill has made $200 billion from investing in the research and development of vaccines.
I'd like to talk to you about your approach to vaccinations. You wrote something recently, and like you always do, you kind of looked at the problem from a scientific and business perspective on things. You've invested $10 billion in vaccinations over the last 2 decades, and you figured out the return on investment for that. And it kind of stunned me. Can you walk us through the math?
Well, it's pretty impressive that when you take these vaccines, get them to be very inexpensive by making big volume commitments, have that right relationship with the private sector, get the delivery system so they're really getting the coverage out there, you literally save millions of lives. And 20 years ago when we created these new multilateral organizations, Gavi for the vaccines, Global Fund for HIV, TB and malaria, we didn't know they'd be successful. They've gone through lots of challenges about making sure the money gets there, making sure the efficiency is right. But as we look at upcoming replenishments for those, and we've got so much distraction politically that the international needs like this could get eclipsed if we're not careful, we see a phenomenal track record. It's been $100 billion overall that the world's put in. Our foundation is a bit more than $10 billion, but we feel there's been over a 20-to-1 return. So if you just look at the economic benefits, that's a pretty strong number compared to anything else.
The Purbright Institute, of which Bill Gates is listed as one of the major stakeholders, is a, quote, world-leading centre of excellence in research and surveillance of virus diseases, end quote. The Purbright Institute owns the patent for coronavirus, patent number 10130701, dated 28 November 2018. Generally, the dictionary defines a patent as being 1. The exclusive right granted by a government to an inventor to manufacture, use or sell an invention for a certain number of years, and 2. An invention or process protected by this right. However, in the interest of objectivity and good sport, it is only fair that the viewer be made aware of the fact that the Purbright Institute has issued a disclaimer regarding current public interest into their exclusive ownership on the patent for coronavirus, in which the disclaimer partly states, quote, coronavirus is a broad name for a family of viruses. This patent is not for the new COVID-19 virus, and the Purbright Institute does not currently work with human coronaviruses, end quote. Whilst the Purbright Institute's protestation over their non-ownership of a COVID-19 patent is objectively legitimate, it's important that we remember that COVID-19 is the latest mutation of coronavirus, the same coronavirus which the Purbright Institute holds the exclusive rights to as of 28 November 2018. and from which COVID-19 is a direct derivative. This is the same coronavirus that doctors were engaging in species-to-species transfer of coronaviruses in a level 4 biolab in Wuhan, China, courtesy of a $3.7 million US grant, which was overseen by Dr. Fauci. In short, the doctors playing around with dangerous coronaviruses in a Chinese laboratory had to have obtained the source material, coronavirus, from somewhere, and it is the Pirbright Institute that owns all exclusive rights to the coronavirus patent. Whilst it is ultimately down to the viewer's own discretion as to whatever it is they wish to make of the links between the Pirbright Institute, Dr. Anthony Fauci and Bill Gates, this is information that the viewer needs to be made aware of. After all, whichever entity/entities control the research, licensing and development of a potential vaccine for COVID-19 is likely an entity/entities that are going to be banking on making a handsome return on their investment, say a 20-to-1 ratio, and whilst I have absolutely no idea as to how much money Bill Gates and partners potentially stand to make from a potential COVID-19 vaccine, I'd imagine it's probably a number with a lot of zeros on the end of it.
It's been $100 billion overall that the world's put in. Our foundation is a bit more than $10 billion, but we feel there's been over a 20-to-1 return. But we feel there's been over a 20-to-1 return.
So, for example, what are the big topics now? AIDS, I would imagine, comes up.
Well, yeah, I tell them what I think about AIDS.
What do you think about AIDS?
Remember the fairy tale they told you about the green monkeys? They tell you about these green monkeys, and then they remind you that this is a sexually transmitted disease. I have one big question. Who's pluking the monkeys? So, once you get past the, that seems like kind of an implausible theory if you look at it that way. So I offer 3 other possible scenarios. 1, because remember, it is announced suddenly one day in November, 700 people died from a disease we never heard about before. One possibility, it came from outer space. Another one, it came from a government laboratory. Not saying whose, could have escaped, could have been done on purpose as a test on civilians. The other possibility is it came from a private sector laboratory for money. Because when they find the pill that you can take to let you do it again, somebody's going to make some money. There's no question about that.
A few countries that have almost avoided the epidemic entirely, like Taiwan, New Zealand, Australia, they took their experience and actually prepared, and so they moved a lot faster. So we, we'll have to prepare for the next one, the next one. Our foundation is a bit more than $10 billion, but we feel there's been over a 20-to-1 return. So we, we'll have to prepare for the next one, That, I'd say is, will get attention this time.